Hello, governors. Welcome back to Power Squared. Today, we are going to be looking at a really cool new feature in Power Platform, the Power Platform inventory. Charles, do you want to take it away and give a bit of a description around what that is?
Yeah, so the Power Platform inventory has been something that Microsoft have been working on for a long time. And I've been attending these monthly Center of Excellence starter kit calls where they've been trying to give us updates on this inventory and the API that will come with it, because of course it's going to have a massive impact on the starter kit. And we've been waiting for information for ages and ages and ages. And it's only very recently that we finally had this inventory released. And it's been released into our admin centers, but it's brand new and it's in preview. And we've got the documentation in front of us right now on the Power Platform inventory. Are there any things that stand out to you on it, Josh?
Yeah, there's a few things that, in my mind, are quite interesting. First one being spot your champions. I'm keen to explore what that means and how that can kind of benefit us as admins and governors of the platform and what we can do with that information. And also the enforce compliance standards. So how does that work? I'm curious to see what those features do and how, or just in general, that the inventory can be of benefit and whether this is going to be the kind of replacement for the starter kit. So it's an interesting one. Is there anything that jumps out to you?
Yeah, so from the things that you mentioned, I'm also thinking about the fact that we both work with large organizations and things like spot your champions. Well, is that going to work nicely for a large organization? How would that work? Maybe that side is not too bad. Okay, you might pick out your top 5 makers or something along those lines. But then what about things like where it says prevent orphaned agents and that type of governance control? Because those kinds of things, well, if you're within a huge organization, you're not going to have the time to do it manually, are you? You're going to want that to be automated. So there is another side to this inventory. I wasn't going to touch on it straight away, but I'm going to now, which is the Power Platform Inventory API. And this is something that gets me very excited in addition to the inventory, potentially more excited because I love automation. So here is where I'm thinking about, well, if there's an API, what data do I want to grab from that API? Where do I want to put it? Do I want to get that data in real time? And all of those really cool things. So this is where you can start actually automating those processes. Like every so often, I'm going to check for orphaned apps and agents, and then I'm going to fire off something that happens because of that. Things that have been or currently are in the Center of Excellence starter kit. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, really. There's some interesting features here. And I'm keen to get into the nitty-gritty demo, which we will do very shortly. I just want to call out, just in case anyone hasn't noticed, that these are preview features. So they're not ready for production use yet. So do expect things to change. And I hope things change for the better, because you'll soon see that maybe some of these things that they're calling out aren't quite there ready yet. I'm very excited to see how this changes and evolves. I am really excited about this feature as an admin, as a governor of the platform. I feel like this is the step that we've needed for a long time in the right direction. Having native platform first insights, it feels like it's taken forever to get to this point. Really excited to see what this is about. Do you just want to jump straight into the demo and show us what we've got here?
Just about. There is one thing I wanted to point out before we jump into that. And it's something that you and I had noticed before, which is that the inventory includes agents and it includes apps, but it doesn't include Power Automate flows and other components that are not listed here. So before we go into the admin center and go, oh, this doesn't make sense, we're missing things, that would be why. With all of these new features that you see in Power Platform, it always makes sense just to go to Microsoft Learn first, see if there are any limitations or if there's any troubleshooting guide that you need to check out because something could go wrong, that kind of thing. So, Josh, what are we looking at?
Oh, so this is within the Power Platform Admin Center, and we've gone into Manage on the left, as you can see there, and we've clicked into Inventory. So with it being a preview feature, it might or might not be there for you. So just depends on your region, that type of thing. But it should be there. You should be able to see this and have just to kind of look through as all of this information. So at a glance, what we're seeing at this maker inventory is a collection of those canvas apps, code apps, model-driven apps, and agents. I think I've captured them all there. And you can see it's really basic information. Let's not try and sugarcoat this at the minute. It is really basic information of an overview of these. For example, if we look at that top one there, we can see it's a canvas app. You can see, Charles, that you're the owner of that. It was last modified on the 25th of November, and it was created on the 25th of November as well. It's in the environment CoE, and that environment type is of production. I'm curious to know how it identifies that modified date column, what that actually means. Does that mean the last time the app was opened or edited? That modified one, it'd be good to get a little bit more information about that.
My assumption would be that it's when it was last saved.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if it's just saved but not published, I'd expect that to be changed.
Okay. And yeah, there's other things there, such as the environment region as well. So we get a good insight at a glance into this kind of screen of goodies, effectively, to get us going. We can add and remove columns here to create a more tailored report. As you can see, it's fairly limited. We've got most of them added already to the screen, but maybe if you want to remove, say, like the modified on column, add the managed environment column, and save that. That's going to save and update the report, the list, and you're going to see that reflected in real time. We can extract this data as well, which is really nice. You can see where we just clicked for the columns. Next to that, there's a nice download button. And if you click on that, it's going to go away and download this list of items as a CSV format, so that you can do any kind of additional transformation or whatever you need to do outside of the admin center. So that's the kind of starting point, I would say. Charles, do you want to kind of take us through a little bit more of this stuff in detail?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made. And with the download of all of your inventory, it happens so quickly. So it's really performant. We're trying it on, a small amount of items, but it's happening instantly. So it'd be interesting to know how that would work with, say, 100,000 items in your inventory. But so far, so good. It's really nice. We've got search capabilities. We've got the ability to filter things and to sort them. So all of that side of things seems really nice. We've got the ability to refresh it. If you've created a new Canvas app, then I would generally expect it to appear pretty much instantly. But it seems like agents might take a bit longer to turn up. In Microsoft Learn, it says up to 15 minutes. So yeah, overall, it's really nice. It's a great start. And I'm curious to know where that's going to evolve. But we might actually have some ideas as to where that might evolve as we go through the other parts, because there's a bit more information in the other ones.
Yeah, there is. And that might be the stuff that interests people a bit more, I feel, because there's a lot more insights. And yeah, that's the good stuff. I just want to call out, actually, the new vibe.powerapps feature. It looks like those kind of apps that we've been playing around with, because who hasn't been messing around with this new feature, right? They seem to be appearing in here, which I only just kind of picked up on there. And that's really nice. So you can tell that they're kind of building for the future here, which is good to see.
Yeah, exactly. We've got my task tracking apps that I've been messing around with. And yeah, that is really cool. And it just shows that the Vibe apps that we're working with are the same technology essentially as code first apps or code apps. It'll be interesting to see if there is a differentiator between the two in the future, but at the moment, both are exactly the same in here, code apps. So on to the very interesting parts from our perspective. So we've seen the inventory here. We've just got a list of items. Okay, it doesn't really tell us that much. What happens if we dig down into it? So let's say we'll dig down into our Power Apps. Well, we've got the same list here. So we've got our Canvas app, Code app is exactly the same. But we also have a reports tab here. And if we go to reports, it's not going to load that inventory table, but instead it's going to load from Power BI. So you might be able to see a little bit of the Power BI logo in the bottom as it's trying to load that. Now, the first thing to note with this is that this is part of that inventory experience, and we are still in a preview experience. It says preview at the top. So you can expect things to go wrong. And immediately we see that something has gone wrong because I can't scroll down and see what's going on the page. So the only way to get around this is to zoom out. what we're looking at here, I've immediately gone to the right-hand side because I find this part potentially the most interesting, which is where it's got the top apps by unique users. So at the moment, obviously, we don't have much data. This is just in a test tenant or a development tenant, so there's not much going on. But you can imagine that in a fully featured tenant, which I've already tested this on, it gets really interesting because you really do see your top performing apps. Well, I say top performing, most used apps. So then if we go down a little bit, then we've got our top environment unique users, which is a really interesting one because it might be that you've got an environment that's shared and has loads of apps within it, and those apps are being used by many different users. Then those environments will appear on here, whereas they might not appear in the above graphic. As we move over to the left-hand side here, you just get a bit more detail about what's going on with these users and their sessions. And yeah, you can see how many sessions an app might have. So that could be quite interesting because it might be an app that's not used by too many unique users, but they're using it a lot. So there are many sessions being generated from that.
What I find really interesting about this is on the filters at the top of that report, it's got app type, canvas apps, and model driven apps, but it doesn't include code apps. So maybe that's a preview thing that's coming in the next iteration. But it would be good to see the code apps on this as well. Obviously, we're not getting that right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would imagine that that will be coming. The other thing that I find incredibly interesting about this one is that it gives you something the Center of Excellence Starter Kit cannot give you. And that is with model-driven apps that we can't get the usage data for them in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. But here, maybe we can. Yeah, looking at the moment, it's faded out at the moment. But yeah, we should be able to get the usage data from them here where we can't within the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So that's a really interesting feature.
Yeah. Nice to see model-driven apps become part of the party in terms of reporting and analytics. Typically, it's been a little bit harder to get that information, particularly from the starter kit, right?
Yeah. And when we were looking at the inventory before, we saw apps and we saw agents, but we didn't see flows. But we do have Power Automate here on the left-hand side. I'm going to stay zoomed out because we have a similar issue with this one. And again, it loads a Power BI report and is very similar to the Power Apps one. But now we've actually got Power Automate flows. And of course, instead of them being launched by users and wanting to count the number of users, you're wanting to know about the flow runs, like how many times a flow is running. And the flows that are running the most within this tenant are Center of Excellence Starter Kit flows because they're running regularly to synchronize everything. But this could be really, really useful information because you might have someone who's built a flow that's running continually and making a ton of API calls and you're not aware of it. This could be a way to find out.
Yeah, I really like the insights on the left of that report there. Things like failed runs, for example, being able to quickly see the number of failed runs is quite an important metric, I find. So it's really nice things here within Power Automate. Is there anything else we want to look at in terms of Power Automate, or do we want to look at Copilot next?
I guess one of the things that we haven't shown at the moment is you do have some other tabs here. So you have an environment view, which could be quite useful. So it's showing the data for Charlie Dev, which is my developer environment. So if you wanted to drill down into those environments, you can do it that way. And you get more options when you drill down into environment. We're looking at runs. You can look at usage, created, errors. So errors could be a particularly useful one. Maybe you've got an environment where you're getting lots of support tickets coming from it and you have a feeling it's because of the flows. You could drill down into it this way. So it does give you some options if you want to look for data. Maybe it's not the best way of looking for data if you don't know what you're looking for. And the other side of things, of course, is we were looking at usage there and we looked at the environment view, but under overview, we've also got maker activity, and then we've got an inventory view as well. So I'll just quickly show you what those look like. So there's our maker activity, essentially shows people creating flows. And then inventory is not the table of inventory like we've seen before, but this is a Power BI report of inventory. I don't know that this is necessarily that useful. And to be honest, it probably won't stick around because I would imagine that we'll be getting more of the inbuilt inventory that we've seen before from the inventory up there that we were looking at and the inventory that we looked at before, which I somehow seem to have lost.
So will we move on to Copilot Studio then and have a look at what insights we get out of that in terms of inventory? So this is a new thing, isn't it, as well, the Copilot Studio inventory. This obviously scopes it to just the Copilot one. What I'm really interested in, though, is that second column that says created in. And it says Copilot Studio brackets full. So it seems to suggest that within here, we might be able to track maybe some of the Copilot Studio Lite or 365 agent stuff as well, and maybe even some of the Foundry things. So I'm keen to see how that progresses and evolves, particularly with some of these new features like Agent 365 coming out. What role is this going to play in that kind of bigger picture? Is this going to take more of a back seat? Going to be a complementary thing? Yeah, there's a few thoughts going through my head there on this.
Yeah. And when we go back to this, it says all agents created in Copilot Studio, which suggests that it's not going to be the light agents. But like you say, them saying full makes it feel like maybe there would be light agents. So we'll have to wait and see. There's, of course, Agent 365, which will show you all of the agents in your organization. So you've got multiple places where things are going on now. At the moment, it does feel a little bit disjointed and a little bit confusing. So it definitely is this kind of feature that needs to be brought to maturity. We'll see how it works out. The eagle-eyed amongst you will also have seen that we've got classic chatbots here. And I'm a bit confused because I'm sure that I saw agent flows as well, but they seem to have disappeared. Do you remember that, Josh?
No.
Do you know what? Yeah, here we go. And the reason being is actually because this one I'm not in admin.preview and this one I'm in admin.preview. So this is a brand new feature that's come through to the inventory, which is agent flows.
And so we might need to cut this bit. If you go back to Power Automate in the preview one, I knew it.
That's
Knew it.
okay. Damn it. We
Right.
shouldn't cut this. We should keep this.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It makes for good viewing, right? So we've just seen that. I guess the point of this is the lesson learned is how quickly this is moving, right? Between the two, from admin.preview to the normal admin center, there's already been changes. And we, I guess, tripped ourselves up a little bit there because we reviewed this before we recorded, right? And could see we were looking at this. And then we screen shared again as we started the video and it was showing the legacy views. So I guess we don't necessarily need to run through the inventory for Power Automate again, do we? Because it is the same concept as the Power Apps in the Copilot Studio one. It's bringing that into the new world of inventory.
It shows how quickly it's changing. So admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com shows you this view, which is the Power BI view. And then now in admin.preview.powerplatform.microsoft.com, it shows you the new inventory view for Power Automate. So it means that this next iteration that's going to go through to the public website address, the public domain, is going to be the inventory one. And that does also make me want to just go back to the inventory and just double check. Okay, cloud flows are actually within there. So this is the Microsoft Learn documentation is going to be updated imminently because this will be coming through to the public domain.
That's really good to know. And just to call out within the Power Automate tab again, it did have that same concept with the reports as well at the top there with a tab. And that does seem to be the same report as you were seeing in just the kind of other version that we looked at initially.
Yeah, it is the same. They've just removed the inventory Power BI report because, of course, you no longer need that because you now have a proper inventory.
So that's really interesting. One thing I wanted to call out, if we could go back to the Power Apps tile and select any app we see there. One thing I was really curious about, I think our viewers might be as well, is when we click on that, what happens? And it looks like it takes you to the environment and it takes you to the details of that app. Does that do that for code apps as well, or just Canvas apps? And let's check model driven apps whilst we're at it and see what happens.
Okay. Yes, so it seems to work for this. I'm just so curious as to clicking on play because this is a vibe coded app. Yeah, publishes that before you can play it. But the other one believes it is published, so maybe this one will actually allow us to play it. Yeah, nice. There we go. So there's the vibe coded app and it's accessible from the admin center just like that.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good to know. So there is a pathway to get to these apps then, which is nice. So that's been really useful just going through all the new functionality that we're getting in the admin center, I feel like this is really coming along a long way. My question to you, Charles, and it's a big one, is this the beginning of the end of the CoE starter kit?
My answer to that is that yes, it's the beginning of the end, but it is not the end. So there's so much that the CoE Starter Kit, Center of Excellence Starter Kit provides that it's going to take a while until something like that can be completely overtaken by other things. So yes, maybe it's the beginning of the end, particularly for the synchronization and inventory process in the starter kit. But what about all the other little bits and pieces that it does? So things like giving you the orphaned apps process and managed permissions process and the data policy conflicts and all of those kinds of things. You would hope that those would eventually be easy things to do within Power Platform. But for the time being, we need the starter kit for those. So I don't see the starter kit going away anytime soon. Although, yeah, I would think this is definitely the beginning of the end. What do you think?
I would tend to agree. I really like this new concept that we're getting through here, inventory, and being able to see the data is great, but we're not really able to do much in the way of action at the minute with this data. We can view it and maybe do minor things, but we don't have that kind of element which the starter kit does have. So I think there's still a really big gap there is, one, getting the data, then what do you do with that data to make it meaningful? The starter kit has that bit, and it feels like there's a real big gap on this side. So really excited about this and curious to know where it's going to go direction wise. But yeah, there's some massive gaps here that need to be kind of filled before I start going here rather than the starter kit for my kind of insights and whatnot within our tenant.
Yep, absolutely. So that's everything that we have for today. And curious to know if you would like us to go into any detail on more parts of the admin center, or whether there are parts of the starter kit that you want us to go into, or maybe elements outside of that. We've got some plans to talk about things like automation, because automation is a massive thing for governance and administration. So some really cool things coming up with that. And eventually, hopefully, automation related to this new Power Platform Inventory API.